Alright everybody, welcome to part 2 of the Ubuntu and VirtualBox seminar brought to you by the Marine Robotics Club and TAC at Florida Atlantic University. So in part 1 we configured the Oracle Virtual Machine VirtualBox to hold a Ubuntu instance. And now in this one, we're going to go over some of the core Ubuntu concepts and how to kind of navigate through this new operating system. So pretty much the way that I go through, so now this is a full desktop environment. Now you have these icons over here where you've got all the things on your computer. This is kind of like the Windows button for Linux. You've got your file explorer, so that you can go through and you see, these are all the different folders. It comes natively installed with LibreOffice, and that's just a free version of Office pretty much. And then the Ubuntu Software Center where you can install new things. But so this. So now this is the terminal, and the way that I brought that up is just with Control-Alt-T. That's for a new terminal. And you can see from before, this is the username, and this is the computer name. So that's where those two names go. So now when you see this $, that's pretty much just means that you are at your home folder. So it's, if I click LS, LS will list all of the current items in the directory that you're at. And if you do CD ... you can go up one folder. So you'll see now, okay, well, this would be where all of the users are stored. And you can see that this $$ changed to a /home, and because now this is with respect to the root directory. So if I go down one more, now this is just pure root, and this is as low as I can go. If I do CD ... again, I'm not going to go any further. And you can actually just do CD as well, and that'll bring you one. So if you do CD with no parameters, it'll just bring you to home, which is where all of your typical stuff is, and CD/ will bring you to that root directory. So this stuff, this is the Linux operating system. You've got, home is where the users are. OPT are optional processes that you could install. There's the system items, there's variables, there's processes. Mount and media is going to be, if you mount a hard drive to an Ubuntu instance, it'll show up there, and media would just kind of be like an auto mount thing. Sometimes under etc. is going to be where some of the background processes are, but unless you're configuring your own Ubuntu installation, you're not really going to use these things on a day-to-day basis. And there's a lot of information about how to interact with them. So for right now, all that we really need to do is be under just the home path, which is CD tilde, and that'll bring us right to our home. So you can see when I typed in this command here, it was like CD caret or something. I don't even know what that character is, but it brought me to something that had this. Now what this is a bash input. So this goes to bash, and bash, to my understanding, my disclaimer from here on out is that I am presenting the material to the best of my knowledge. I am certainly not the end-all and be-all when it comes to Linux. And if there is something that I say incorrect, please forgive me. And if you realize that I said something incorrect, for those in the room, let me know, hey Travis, that's garbage. And if you're watching this video at home, please go ahead and leave it in the comments. So yeah, this is the bash, and what bash is the commands that you send through the terminal. And so you can write like a bash script. And when you run that script, it goes through and it does a number of commands from the terminal. And this can be for things as innocent as starting, let's say you have some program that you that there's 4 different applications to, and you want to start them all with one keystroke. Well, you write a bash script that would go through and start those things one at a time. Another application that would be a little bit more malicious would be, I've heard speaks of it called the USB on the go, where pretty much it's a USB drive that you can plug into yours or somebody else's computer, and then it automatically runs a program to open up a terminal and change network configurations so that the machine that it's plugged into sends all of the internet traffic through a server that you set up at home. So you can spy the person's every bit of data going over the internet. But so for right now, just back to where we're at, core basics is, ls again and cd. So ls is the list and cd is change directory. Now with ls, you can do something like ls -a, and what this is this sets the all flag. So this will list your hidden files as well as your the regularly accessible items. So one of the things with this Ubuntu, this is a desktop environment, so it has this .local folder. Now this is going to be where under share and under, let's see, what am I looking for? Applications, nothing. So this is normally where the trash bin is stored. There is a trash bin for Ubuntu desktop environments, and it's under the .local. I don't recall the full directory right now, but that's where it would be should you need to find it. So you can see I'm a couple of folders deep here. It's the tilde, and then I'm in .local, and then I'm in share, and this whole thing. And if I go into applications, this will update. So you have this log here of where you currently are inside of the file system. And if I wanted again go back to my home directory, just hit CD, and now it's changed, and I'm back in my nice and comfy home directory. So one of the other core features is man, and man stands for manual, and it's a nice built-in feature of at least Ubuntu. I believe the majority of Linux, if not all of them. You can do things like man, let's say ls, and now what this is it's a full manual on everything that you ever wanted to know about the user command ls. So it says what it is. This is how, just kind of pseudocode for how it works, and these are called flags. When you see the minus sign and a letter, it's called a flag, and you set the flags. If you typed in ls -c, it would be setting the flag to list entries by columns. So you can see, this was when I did -a, that was setting the all flag. So do not ignore entries that start with a dot. So what we can do now is, so we're going to go ahead and get out of here. So that was a manual example. There's man CD. So there's no manual entry for CD. I guess it's pretty straightforward. There's no flags that you can pass it. But one of the other things that you can do with ls is, let's say I know what folder I want to list the contents of, but I'm not necessarily in that folder, and I don't want to switch folders into it. So I can type in ls and then actually write the folder. So if I do tilde/, this is from the home, and I do documents, now you'll see how I only type doc. There's a nice feature called autocomplete, and if you hit the tab button, as long as there's not more than one option, it will complete what you want to type. Now, if there is more than one option, and you can see that if I go just do, because there's documents, and downloads that both start with DO, and I press tab, well, it's going to list what the possibilities are. So now I say DOC, and it completes it for me. So now I did an LS for documents, and it didn't list anything because if I CD into documents and do an LS, there's nothing there. So if I wanted to make a file now, so now I'm going to be using a text editor. There's a couple of different Linux text editors that you can use either inside of the terminal or with a secondary window. So one of them is Nano, and Nano is pretty much the core. I guess there's VI and Vim, which is more powerful but less user-friendly than Nano. Yeah, people that do write in VI and Vim can go through it very, very quickly, but in my experience, it's less user-friendly. So I'm going to stick to Nano for this right now. And
Nano's also the one that all the Raspberry Pi stuff points you to.
Okay.
Because that's like anything that I've learned about this so far has been me doing research on that, right?
Okay.
And Nano's also the good text editor that they
okay.
point to, yeah.
And you can use any one that you wanted to.
Right, yeah,
So if I say Nano, I'm going to just call this something.cpp. Now, here's this. Okay, so this is some script that I have. And we can do just your standard C++ stuff like pound include IO stream. And you can see, because it's a C++ file, Nano does some of the nice color coding for you. And, using namespace std. And I'm going to go ahead and, I have my int main. And then I'm going to make my main loop. And it's just going to say cout. Simple hello world application, hello world, and that, and L, and close them, and return 0. So just a very basic C++. Now one of the things that you don't have in Nano, or VI for that matter, is any type of auto formatting. You're not going to have autocomplete, and in fact, I can't even select where I want to go with a mouse. It doesn't support it. So this is all keystrokes and strictly using the keys on your keyboard is how you interact with Nano. So this is done, so I'm going to go ahead and hit Control-C, save, modified buffer, and pardon me, I hit Control-X. Control-X is what you do to exit out with saving. And I'm actually going to change this from something to hello world, because that's what it is.
That was the other thing they were saying about Nano, is it's really nice because it has all those hotkeys, basically.
Yeah.
That was like kind of their argument for how like the user friendliness of it, I guess. Is,
as
nice
opposed to Vim.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to show you now, so there's Nano, and that's if you don't have a desktop. And that's what some Linux systems are. Sometimes, you won't have any of these buttons over here. There's no desktop. There's no graphical user environment or graphical user interface. It's just strictly command line. Well, then you have to use Nano or VI or Emacs or one of these other text editors. But for the majority of Ubuntu applications, you do have this GUI, and same thing with Raspberry Pi. You have this GUI.
Right.
And you can do something called gedit. So now if I type in gedit, hello world, and I did the ls, and it shows, all right, so now I have this application called hello world. So now I'm going to use gedit hello world, and these all work the same way. So Nano is the name of the application, and then something.cpp is is the file that I want to open. So the same thing with gedit. So gedit is the name of the application, and hello world is the name of what I want to open. Now I have this, which is a full-on text editor, and now I have mouse integration. I have, I can do things like, physically save it. If I wanted to, I can make a new file here and call it whatever I want. And this is a standard text editor, and I think this is even more user-friendly than Nano. No, it's not going to have the autocomplete of something like Cold Blocks or Visual Studio, certainly not.
Right.
But it's a little bit more, even a little bit more user friendly than Nano.
another question.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to go back over there on the terminal and just type in, say, gedit,
Mm-hmm.
that would open the application gedit, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And now you're going to see here, this is a pretty interesting thing too. Right now, this cursor is blinking, but I don't have this. It's just kind of hanging out. And if I start typing away ls, well, it's not doing anything. cd, it's not doing anything. And that's because this application is open. So it's still waiting for this application to close.
And then you'll be back in the terminal.
So if I hit Control C, that's pretty much the standard way to end a process.
Okay.
So now let's say that I wanted to open up Hello World, but I still wanted to have access to the terminal.
Okay.
Well, what I do is gedit, Hello World, ampersand. And what ampersand does, and this isn't just for this, it's for any Linux process, it will run it in the background. Meaning that when I open this, this is going to start, but you can see I still have my terminal here, and it's not going to be hanging up waiting for what I do in this window.
And you're still in the documents folder.
Yep,
Okay.
I'm still right there. So yeah, and like Luke was saying, if I just type in gedit, now it opened up a new document. You can see if I close this out, and again, I just type in gedit, again, it opened it up. But I didn't run it with the ampersand, so it's not running in the background. So one of the other things that's nice about the terminal is it has memory. So if I press up on the arrow keys, it has a list of all of the previous commands that I've run with. So, you know, if I'm in CD, let's say I forgot what the manual command was, and I wanted to get back that nifty manual of ls. Well, I can go ahead and hunt, and okay, there it is, man ls, and it comes right back up. You know, and this is really useful when you're running a specific command that's maybe not very human readably friendly, or if you find yourself changing directories and it's a long directory path, you can just go back to what you already did. You know, if you're working in two different directories, you can cd. You know, you don't have to only cd one path. Like, it's not just cd documents. So let's say, just for example, I'm going to start making a whole, so I'm going to use make dir, which makes a directory. I'm going to say make dir new, and then I'm going to cd into new. And I'm going to make dir new 2, and I'm going to cd into new 2. And I'm going to do one more, make dir new 3. And now what I'm going to do is go back to my home. And so let's say I'm here and I just boot up my system. Let's say now, okay, you know, brand new terminal, so I'm not where I am, but I know that the directory that I have to get to. Well, I can just say cd. You know, you can either do tilde that, and this is the home directory, or you can just automatically just go start typing documents without a slash or any sort of pretext. Any documents, and it was new 2, new 3, enter, and now I'm here inside of new 3. So you just go right to it. You can do it backwards, forwards, however you want to do it. So now, let's say I go back to, let's say I want to copy the Hello World script from where it was in documents to new 3. So CP is going to be your copy, and it goes source, destination. So I'm going to go to, so now I am not in the documents folder anymore, so I have to say where it is. So I can do one of two things. One, home Calvin, which is the username, and then we go to documents, or the hotkey, the macros for home Calvin, which is just that, and then documents, and I'm right there. And then the name of the file, which is hello world, and now I'm going to put it in the destination, which is same thing. It's actually where I am right now, so I'm actually just for,
Gonna type it out.
yeah. 3. Now you can see I have my hello world file, and I can gedit it, hello, and there it is. So now let's say I'm back in Documents, and I'm here, and I want to delete the Hello World from here because I have it in this new folder. Well, I'm going to type in rm Hello World, and now it's deleted. And rm is your remove function. So now ls, you can see it's gone. So let's say I'm back in my home, and now I want to open up the file that's in, I want to open up Hello World again. Well, you can't just do cd documents new Hello World. You have to actually do gedit or nano. We use nano this time around. Nano new 3 / Hello World. And now it'll open up. I can do whatever I want, which is actually nothing. And exit. Yeah, save it. Good. And now I opened that up, I edited that file, but I didn't leave the directory that I was in. Okay. So we've gone over cd, ls, man, we've gone over cp. You can also use mv, which is move, and that'll just move one directory or one file from one place to another. We went over rm. So now let's say I'm in Documents, and I want to delete this whole thing. This new, I don't need it anymore. I want to just delete it. Well, if I type in rm new, it's not going to work because it's a directory. So what you have to do is rm -r new, and that'll work because you set the -r flag, which stands for recursive, and that's the way that you can delete a folder. It'll delete the folder below it and then everything inside of that folder, and if there's more folders, if there's nested folders, it'll just delete everything until it gets to the top one and delete that.
And if I did man rm, it would tell me all the flags, and that flag would be in there.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
Yes. Now, a command not to run ever, unless you really mean it. So if let's say I'm in, again, I'm going to just bring that dir back, make dir new. Okay, so I'm in here, I'm in Documents, and I say, okay, well, I want to remove the folder, well, this, right? This will delete everything below the current directory that I'm in. Well, no, what this actually does is deletes everything from the root directory. So like the same way, if I did cd / okay, this brings me to the root of the system. This is the whole thing. If I do rm -r / it's going to delete everything from that directory. So that's a great way to wipe your system out.
I hope you didn't learn that the hard way.
I did. Yeah, at competition.
Oh, gosh.
So, yeah, you don't want to run that. And one of the things that we haven't gotten to yet, and actually I'm a little bit surprised that we haven't gotten to it yet, I was assuming that it would just kind of come up, is sudo. So in Ubuntu, there is not root access. There is no such thing as the super user root. Even you can go into super user, but you don't have complete authority over the system. And so if I wanted to install something, or which we'll get to in just a moment, or make changes on a system level, you have to use the sudo command. And a lot of times it'll be something like sudo rm -r / would be what would be required. And this one you definitely don't want to do, because this will delete that with administrative access. And I'll tell you what, at the end of this seminar, because this is a virtual machine, I'm going to go ahead and run this command and show you exactly what happens. So now that we're at sudo, we're going to talk about sudo and apt. So if you're like, a lot of times when you're configuring your virtual machine, you're going to need to install different packages or different libraries and different extensions. And the way that you do that is with aptitude, which the shorthand for that is apt. So you can say like man apt. And this shows you, this should be a pretty long
Description.
Yeah. You know.
So because when I was on my Pi installing things, I used apt-get.
Exactly.
Right? Is that like a flag for apt, or is it?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're going to do apt-get, and there's like apt-get, there's apt-remove, and those are the two ones that I really know. But apt-get, your bread and butter is apt-get, install, and let's say you just want to run an update, and this should throw an error. So if I just say apt-get update, what this will do is update all of the packages that you have downloaded, make sure that there's no discrepancies between what you've been working on, and if there's a new version out of some library that you have, it will download that. So if we run this, what's this? Could not open locked file.
You didn't have
permission
sudo.
Exactly.
Okay,
so sudo apt-get update. Now it's going to ask me for my sudo password. So I type in my password, and it goes through and it updates. So one of the things that you may or may not need to do, so now if you're in Ubuntu, you're going to see, if you're used to the Windows style of things, you want your file and edit and whatever, and tools and your normal toolbar right at the top of the application. In Ubuntu, those things are going to be up here. So this file edit are all with respect to the terminal. So if I exit out of that, or if I minimize that terminal, you're going to see that those aren't going to be there anymore. But so what you might have to do is enable repositories. And repositories are the places that code is stored by people that have already written it. Whether it's by the people that are actually writing the Linux code, or whether it's some third-party software, just some guy who did something cool and you want to get it, it's in some type of repository. So what you might have to do is, now you have the Software Center open, and you come up to the menu, and you click on Edit, and you click Software Sources. And what you're going to do with Software Sources, and this is the lag that can sometimes be associated with a VirtualBox. You're seeing that now. You want to make sure that all of these are checked, though. In some things, the restricted and multiverse won't be checked. I'm not actually going to authenticate it because I don't need to, but restricted and multiverse, these repositories will not be enabled by default. This one, they are, but you're going to want to go ahead and check and make sure that that is the case. And so now if I had updated those, in order for those changes to take effect, I would have to go into the terminal and run update like I just did. And you can see, okay, the trusty / main restricted universe, multiverse, all of these sources and packages are being updated. So now let's say I wanted to install something. So one of my favorite things is OpenCV. So what I'm going to do is sudo apt-get install OpenCV. Now, no. So I hit tab twice because I want to see which ones exactly. Okay, so I'm going to install OpenCV-dev. And what that will allow me to do is utilize all of the developer options for OpenCV and use them in scripts that I write. And the thing that's nice about apt-get, and if you guys that are watching this have seen the tutorial on OpenCV in Windows and how to configure it with Visual Studio, it's a heck of a lot easier in Linux. Okay, so this didn't work. That was just kind of a shot in the dark. So let's see, OpenCV-doc. I'm going to say OpenCV-3. Let's see if OpenCV-3 is available. Let's see if just OpenCV is available. No, it's not.
What about like I2C maybe?
Yeah, okay, so here's a good one. The I2C library. So if I say sudo apt-get I2C. Okay. Oh, that's because I didn't type install. No.
Thanks.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and just do a quick search for some package that we can install to show how this kind of will work. So if I say install OpenCV Ubuntu, actually I'm just going to go to the OpenCV, yeah. So you do have some pre-configuring stuff to download, but okay, and that's the reason this is not a great example of how to use apt-get install, because you actually have to use git to clone a repository and then build it. Now, what this is, so Build Essential is going to be one of the tools that's a good thing to have. So if I just if I copy something from some other window and I want to paste it in the terminal, I can't just hit Control V, but I can hit Control Shift V, and then it'll build it. If I just hit Control V, well, it's going to give me this caret with a V, and that's not what I want. So you do Control Shift V, and it'll copy it. So now you can see this is pretty much how it runs. Sudo apt-get install build essential. Okay, it's looking, it's saying here, it checks and makes sure that if the package that you're trying to install has other dependencies, it'll look for those too, and it'll say, okay, these are the packages that you're actually going to be getting. This is the space that they require, and do you want to continue? And click yes. Now it goes through and it's going to install all of these. And now that that's done, I can do my sudo apt-get update, and I'm going to use the up key to kind of go through them. Now there certainly are many more commands. There's actually, there are 2 more commands I'm going to show once this is done updating. And there are many, many more. There's proc and IP and if config and lots of other ones. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to show this. So df -h. And what's nice about this one is it shows what folders are using how much storage, so how much memory. So this is my main, pretty much my main partition, and you can see it's an 11 gigabyte partition, and I've used 3.5 of that. You can do man df, and it'll show all of the different flags that you can set for structuring the response. So you can say something, -h makes it human readable, and that's what this one was, is that it's human readable. Because if I just did df, it's showing me this in, I think it's in bytes. So it'll append accordingly using human readable. And the other one is, so there's df -h, and then free. And what free does is it shows you how much memory of RAM you're actually using. So for this, I think you can do free -h for human readable. So you can say for this machine, I have 5.1 gigabytes of RAM available, and I'm using 1.6. This is useful if you're running some process that is intensive. You can kind of see how big of a footprint that it has. And then one last one is clear, just straightforward. What it does is it clears the terminal. So that is the end of part 2. Again, if anybody has any questions online, leave them in the comments. In the last part of this tutorial, we're going to be talking about networking and how to use the secure shell or SSH functionality. But thank you for watching, and I hope you stick around for part 3.